When a married man wants you, the first thing you must understand is this. His desire for you says nothing about your value. It only reveals the gap in his integrity. Too many people confuse attention with affirmation, as if being wanted by someone already committed is a sign of being special. But it's not. It is a sign that temptation exists, not that truth does. And the moment you treat his interest as proof of your worth, you step into a story that was never meant to honor you, only to use you. A married man's attention is never free. It always costs you your clarity, your dignity, or your future. Because if he is willing to betray someone he vowed to protect, then you must ask yourself, what makes you believe he won't betray you the same way? There is nothing powerful about being someone's escape. Power comes from being someone's choice openly, proudly, and without secrecy. If he cannot give you that, then what he offers is not a life. It is a distraction. You must be ruthless with yourself here. Attraction is not an argument, chemistry is not a commitment, and desire is not a justification to lower your standards. When a married man moves toward you, he is not giving you an opportunity. He is giving you a test of your boundaries, your discipline, and your ability to choose the long term over the emotional rush of the moment. People often say, but he's unhappy in his marriage. That is not your burden to carry. An unhappy marriage does not make him single. His dissatisfaction does not give you permission to participate in a story that wounds another person and ultimately wounds you. If he is truly capable of a new relationship, he will end the one he is in first. If he won't, then he is not choosing you, he is choosing convenience. And here is the truth most people avoid. When you accept a married man's interest, you accept the lowest version of love. A love that hides, a love that fragments you, a love that steals time, energy, and emotional investment, but gives no genuine foundation in return. That is not romance. That is erosion. Slow, subtle, and destructive. Your life demands honesty. Your future requires discipline. And your self-respect depends on you recognizing what kind of attention is beneath you. You do not build a powerful life by stepping into someone else's deception. You build it by aligning your actions with the person you want to become, not by becoming the person you yourself wouldn't trust. When a married man wants you, you must ask yourself a hard question. What does he stand to gain, and what do I stand to lose? He gains excitement. He gains novelty. He gains an escape from whatever responsibilities he refuses to confront. But what do you lose? Time, peace, possibility. You lose the chance to be loved fully, publicly, and without conflict. You lose the opportunity for a relationship that grows instead of one that hides. Real love does not require shadows. It does not require excuses. It does not require you to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's betrayal. Real love asks you to rise, to choose the uncomfortable clarity that protects your future, not the emotional chaos that destroys it. You are not meant to be someone's escape route. You are meant to be someone's home. You are not meant to be their exception. You are meant to be their priority. And any man who is already committed to someone else cannot give you that. Not now. Not ever, unless he chooses truth first. And if he won't choose truth before coming to you, then he is not capable of the kind of loyalty a powerful life requires. Your standards decide your destiny. Your boundaries protect your peace. And the moment you refuse to participate in a situation that dishonors you, you step into a higher level of strength. You become someone who cannot be bought by charm, or swayed by loneliness, or tempted by the illusion of being wanted. You become someone who chooses reality over fantasy, and self-respect over chaos. When a married man wants you, choose yourself. Choose the life you want to build. Choose the peace you want to protect. Choose the future that will not require you to lie, hide, or accept less than what you deserve. Because the truth is simple: the moment you stop accepting attention that costs your self-respect, you start attracting relationships that honor it. You deserve the kind of love that is free, full, and fearless. Don't settle for anything smaller. Attention is not intention. And confusing the two is how people quietly destroy their future while convincing themselves they are being chosen. Attention is easy. It is cheap. It requires no courage, no sacrifice, and no accountability. Anyone can give attention when it costs them nothing. Intention, on the other hand, demands risk. It demands consistency. It demands action aligned with values, not words designed to stimulate emotion. The moment you learn to separate these two, your life becomes clearer, calmer, and far more powerful. Attention shows up when someone is bored, lonely, or seeking validation. It appears late at night, in vague promises, in emotionally charged conversations that never lead anywhere real. It feels intoxicating because it triggers your sense of being seen. But being seen is not the same as being valued. Attention can exist without responsibility. Intention cannot. Intention requires someone to stand in the daylight and say, "This is what I want, and I am willing to structure my life around it." Many people stay trapped because attention mimics connection. It creates the illusion of closeness without the structure of commitment. Words are exchanged. Emotions are stirred. Hope is quietly planted. But nothing changes, no clear direction, no decisive movement, just enough interest to keep you waiting, and just enough uncertainty to keep you doubting yourself. This is how time is stolen without force. This is how potential is wasted without noise. Intention is different because it is uncomfortable. Forces choices. It demands endings and beginnings. A person with intention does not keep you in emotional suspense. They do not feed you fragments while protecting their comfort. They act in ways that reduce ambiguity, not increase it. Their behavior creates security, not confusion. Where attention asks for patience, intention earns trust. If someone truly intends to be part of your life, you will not have to decode their action. You will not need to search for meaning in their silence, or read between the lines of their inconsistency. Intention is clear because it has direction. It moves forward, it builds. It does not hover in possibility, it commits to reality. The danger of attention is that it flatters the ego while weakening the spine. It makes you feel chosen without requiring you to choose yourself. Over time, you begin to tolerate uncertainty. You start lowering standards to maintain connection. You accept ambiguity as romance, and slowly, without realizing it, you train yourself to settle for less than what you need to grow. Attention keeps you emotionally occupied but spiritually stagnant. It keeps you invested without being grounded. It creates emotional dependency while offering no foundation. Intention, by contrast, creates alignment. It brings your values, your time, and your energy into order. It forces you to ask hard questions and make honest decisions. When you accept attention without intention, you teach others how to treat you. You signal that access to you does not require effort, clarity, or commitment. And people will always follow the path of least resistance, not because they are evil, but because human nature responds to what is allowed. Standards are not enforced by words. They are enforced by walking away when actions do not match meaning. Learning to distinguish attention from intention requires discipline. It requires the willingness to endure temporary loneliness rather than permanent confusion. It requires the courage to let go of emotional stimulation that offers no future. This is not easy, but it is necessary. Because clarity costs less than regret. Intention is revealed over time through consistency, through reliability, through choices that close other doors. Anyone can say the right things when it suits them. Only intention remains when it becomes inconvenient. Only intention stays when novelty fades and responsibility begins. The moment you stop chasing attention, you reclaim your power. You become less reactive, less needy, less willing to bargain with your values. You begin to recognize that real connection does not leave you anxious. It does not leave you guessing. It does not leave you shrinking yourself to be kept. Real connection strengthens you. It steadies you. It calls you to rise. Attention is fleeting. It follows mood, desire, and opportunity. Intention is anchored. It is rooted in choice, not impulse. One consumes time. The other builds a life. When you understand this distinction, you stop wasting energy on potential and start investing in reality. Your future does not respond to attention. It responds to intention, and the quality of your life will always reflect the quality of what you choose to accept. Stolen affection creates borrowed confidence, and anything borrowed must eventually be returned with interest. It feels empowering at first, like proof that you are desirable, chosen, or somehow exceptional. But the confidence that comes from taking what was never freely offered is fragile. It cannot support you when reality demands truth. It cannot stand when the illusion collapses, and it cannot carry you forward into a life built on strength and self-respect. Stolen affection does not come from commitment or clarity. It comes from secrecy, imbalance, and emotional shortcuts. It exists in hidden conversations, private promises, and moments that must be erased before daylight arrives. In those moments, you may feel elevated, as if you have been singled out. But that elevation is artificial. It is built on someone else's avoidance, not on your worth. Borrowed confidence rises quickly, but it has no foundation. And without a foundation, it always cracks. The human mind is easily seduced by validation. When someone risks something to give you attention, it can feel like you matter more, but risk without responsibility is not courage, it is escape. And when you accept affection that violates someone else's commitments, you quietly agree to a dangerous trade. You exchange long-term self-respect for short-term reassurance. You trade stability for stimulation, and the cost of that trade always arrives later, when the excitement fades and the consequences remain. Borrowed confidence requires constant maintenance. It needs repeated reassurance, more messages, more proof, more emotional fuel, because deep down, you know it is not yours. You know it depends on secrecy continuing, on boundaries being blurred, on truth being postponed. That creates anxiety, not because you are weak, but because the situation itself is unstable. You cannot build peace on something that must stay hidden. True confidence is slow. It is quiet. It grows from alignment between who you are and how you live. It does not need witnesses. It does not require comparison. And it certainly does not need someone else to betray their values in order to make you feel valuable. Real confidence comes from knowing you do not need to compete with another person's pain to feel chosen. When affection is stolen, it turns you into a participant in someone else's disorder. You are pulled into a story that was already broken before you arrived. And no matter how convincing the words are, you are never being offered a clean beginning. You are being offered a role in an unfinished ending. That is not empowerment. That is entanglement. The tragedy is that borrowed confidence often disguises itself as growth. You feel more desired, more alive, more awake. But growth that depends on deception is not growth at all. It is inflation. And inflated confidence collapses under pressure. The moment the situation demands honesty, decisions, or sacrifice, the illusion dissolves. And when it does, you are left not only with disappointment but with the unsettling realization that you built part of your identity on something that could never last. Stolen affection also distorts your standards. It teaches you to accept fragments instead of wholeness, to tolerate inconsistency instead of clarity, to interpret anxiety as passion. Over time, you stop asking for more because you fear losing what you have, even though what you have was never secure to begin with. This is how borrowed confidence quietly erodes your sense of what you deserve. There is strength in refusal. There is dignity in walking away from what flatters you but weakens you. The strongest people are not those who are constantly desired, but those who are deeply grounded. Those who do not need to be chosen at the expense of someone else. Those who understand that real affection does not rive through betrayal, and real confidence does not grow in the shadows. When you choose integrity over validation, something powerful happens. You no longer need borrowed confidence because you are building your own. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to feel solid, not stimulated. And that solidity attracts a different kind of connection, one that does not require secrecy, competition, or compromise of your values. Stolen affection always demands a price. Sometimes that price is guilt. Sometimes it is anxiety. Sometimes it is wasted time. But eventually it is always self-respect. And self-respect, once traded away, is far more difficult to recover than the validation that tempted you in the first place. Real confidence is earned, not borrowed. It is built through restraint, clarity, and the courage to say no to what feels good but leads nowhere. When you stop accepting stolen affection, you stop living on borrowed confidence. And in that moment, you begin to stand on something far stronger, your own truth. Your boundaries reveal your destiny, because the limits you enforce today quietly shape the life you will be forced to live tomorrow. Boundaries are not walls built to keep people out. They are lines drawn to protect what matters most. They expose what you tolerate, what you value, and what you believe you are worth. Long before success or failure becomes visible, your boundaries have already decided the outcome. Every relationship, opportunity, and environment you enter will test your boundaries. Not out of cruelty, but out of nature. People push where resistance is weak. Circumstances expand where structure is absent. If you do not define what is acceptable, life will define it for you, and it will rarely choose in your favor. Weak boundaries do not create harmony. They create confusion. They invite chaos, disguised as connection, and drain, disguised as opportunity. Many people mistake boundaries for selfishness. They fear that saying no will make them seem cold, difficult, or ungrateful. But boundaries are not an act of rejection. They are an act of alignment. They ensure that your time, energy, and attention are invested where they can grow, not where they are consumed. Without boundaries, you are available to everyone and committed to nothing that truly matters. Your destiny is not shaped by your intentions alone, but by your daily tolerances. What you repeatedly allow becomes normal. What becomes normal eventually becomes permanent. If you tolerate disrespect, you build a future that includes it. If you tolerate inconsistency, you train yourself to live in uncertainty. Over time, your life begins to resemble the lowest standard you accept, not the highest vision you hold. Strong boundaries require clarity. You must know what you stand for before you can stand against anything. This demands self-reflection and honesty. It demands that you confront uncomfortable truths about your habits, your relationships, and your fears. Boundaries collapse not because we don't know what's right, but because we are afraid of what enforcing them might cost us: approval, connection, or comfort. But consider the alternative. Every time you fail to enforce a boundary, you pay a different price. You pay with resentment, with exhaustion, with a quiet loss of self-trust. You begin to doubt your own instincts because you repeatedly override them. And when self-trust erodes, direction disappears. A life without direction does not drift into fulfillment. It drifts into repetition. Boundaries are the structure that allow freedom to exist. Without them, your life becomes reactive. You respond to demands instead of pursuing purpose. You manage crises instead of building a future. With boundaries, your choices become intentional. You decide where your energy goes. You choose which battles matter. You design your life instead of negotiating it. People who respect themselves do not need to explain their boundaries excessively. They enforce them through consistency, not argument. They understand that the right people will adjust, and the wrong people will exit. And that is not a loss, it is a filter. Every boundary you enforce removes what cannot honor you and makes space for what can. Your destiny is shaped by what you protect. If you protect your time, you build mastery. If you protect your values, you build integrity. If you protect your peace, you build resilience. These qualities compound over time, quietly but powerfully. And one day, you look back and realize that the life you are living is not an accident. It is the result of countless small decisions to say no when saying yes would have been easier. Boundaries also teach others how to engage with you. Not through demands, but through consequences. When you tolerate poor treatment, you normalize it. When you withdraw access from those who violate your standards, you communicate your worth without words. Boundaries turn values into action, and action is what shapes reality. The most difficult boundaries are often internal. They are the ones you set with yourself. The boundary that says you will not stay where you are diminished. The boundary that says you will not betray your long-term goals for short-term relief. The boundary that says you will face discomfort now to avoid regret later. These internal boundaries are the difference between discipline and desire, between growth and stagnation. Your future self is watching what you allow today. Every boundary enforced is a message sent forward in time, shaping the conditions of the life you will eventually inhabit. You may not see the results immediately, but they are forming nonetheless. Your boundaries reveal your destiny because they determine the quality of your relationship, the direction of your growth, and the strength of your character. Protect them, enforce them, and trust that every line you draw in self-respect moves you closer to the life you are meant to live. Short-term validation destroys long-term peace, because what feels good for a moment often demands a lifetime of repair. The human mind is wired to chase approval, to seek reassurance that we matter, that we are seen, that we belong. But when validation becomes the substitute for values, it turns into a quiet thief. It steals stability, clarity, and self-respect while offering nothing but emotional noise in return. Short-term validation thrives on immediacy. It arrives through compliments without commitment, attention without direction, and affection without responsibility. It feels powerful because it temporarily silences doubt. But peace is not the absence of doubt. It is the presence of alignment, and alignment cannot be built on fleeting approval. The moment validation becomes your compass, your sense of direction collapses. People who live for validation become reactive. Their mood depends on response. Their confidence rises and falls based on external approval. This is not strength, it is dependence. And dependence erodes peace, because it places control of your emotional state in the hands of others. When your worth is outsourced, your stability disappears. Long-term peace requires restraint. It requires the ability to endure discomfort without immediately soothing it through external affirmation. This is difficult because discomfort exposes insecurity. But insecurity, when faced honestly, becomes the foundation for growth. When avoided through validation, it becomes the root of chaos. What you refuse to confront now will control you later. Short-term validation also distorts judgment. It encourages you to ignore red flags, compromise boundaries, and justify choices that conflict with your values. You tell yourself stories to make the validation feel earned or deserved. But deep down, you sense the imbalance. That awareness creates internal tension. And tension, sustained over time, becomes anxiety. Peace is not loud. It does not announce itself through excitement or drama. It is built quietly through consistent, value-aligned decision. Validation, by contrast, is stimulating. It demands attention. It thrives on intensity. And intensity, when unregulated, is exhausting. You cannot rest in a life that constantly needs to be affirmed. Every time you choose short-term validation over long-term peace, you teach yourself that relief is more important than truth. Over time, this training becomes automatic. You begin to seek situations that offer emotional spikes rather than stability. This is how people become addicted to chaos while calling it passion. And chaos never leads to peace. It only postpones the reckoning. Long-term peace requires that you tolerate being misunderstood, that you accept periods of loneliness, that you walk away from situations that offer attention but not respect. These choices are not glamorous. They do not produce immediate rewards, but they build a life that does not need constant reassurance to function. Validation asks, do you like me? Peace asks, am I living in alignment with who I am becoming? These questions lead to very different outcomes. One makes you smaller. The other makes you solid. One fragments your identity. The other integrates it. Short-term validation also creates fear of loss, because when something feeds your ego without feeding your future, you cling to it. You tolerate conditions you should leave. You silence instincts you should trust. And in doing so, you betray yourself. Self-betrayal is the fastest path to inner conflict, and inner conflict is the enemy of peace. Peace grows when your actions and values are in agreement. When you do not have to justify yourself internally, when you can sit in silence without needing affirmation to feel okay. This kind of peace is rare because it demands maturity. It demands the discipline to delay gratification and the courage to disappoint others. The irony is that when you stop chasing validation, you become more grounded, more confident, and more attractive, not because you are seeking approval, but because you are no longer controlled by it. Stability has a presence. Self-respect has weight, and people feel it. Short-term validation promises comfort but delivers dependence. Long-term peace demands discipline but delivers freedom. One keeps you busy proving your worth. The other allows you to live it. Short-term validation destroys long-term peace because it trains you to trade integrity for reassurance. And the moment you stop making that trade, you begin to build a life that is calm, clear, and unshakable.